2026 is almost here, so let's look back at all the updates that came out this year. Starting off, of course, we are still in the 1.21 update cycle, which has been like this for about a year now. This year is also the first full year that we've had drops. So of course, the first one was 1.21.5. This of course being the Spring to Life update. This update brought the wildflowers and dried leaves. These of course can be put like the pink petals, which I think is much better than just placing them in a full block. These of course can spawn all over forests and plains. And like the bush, which was also added this update, it adds a little bit more life. We also got the firefly bush, which is a really cool thing, but it would have been cooler if we actually did get fireflies. My main problem with the firefly bush is that they all look exactly the same. There's no variation in the lighting, and during the day they also light up. The other cool things about this update is of course we had the new things to the desert like these shrubs. These items of course can be really useful for building. We also got the cactus flower, which is also a really cool design. And of course the next big thing of this update was the mob variant. We of course got the warm mob variant and the cold variant. And of course in the normal biomes, all the things are exactly the same. We also got the new updates to the spawn eggs, which I really like, but of course the old ones will always be nostalgic. My final thoughts about this update is that I think it was a pretty good update, even though they could have added some extra stuff, like maybe some changes to the actual sheep design instead of just the color. I feel like a lot of the things like the mob variants add a lot more to the game. You'd always find the same sheeps, cows, chickens, and all of those type of mobs. And I feel like this just adds so much more variety when you're traveling. Also, the flowers add a tiny bit extra detail to the game instead of just being certain types of blocks, and they can also be really good for building, as I said. However, I think that they could have added a bit more to this update, and even though there wasn't much bad about this update, I feel like it could have been a bit better. And I think the only thing I would say, which I already said, is the firefly bushes being too similar to each other. So, on a ranking, I would probably give it around B tier. It's not bad, but it also could have been better, so I'd put it around the midway point. 1.21.6 is next, or the Chase the Skies update. This update of course brought the locator bar, which can be useful to track players. We also got the dried gas, which of course when you hydrate it turns into the happy gas, which has a special mechanic that you can ride it. This is really useful to travel even though it's a bit slow, but you can also stand on it, which can make building easier. We also got the gas sling version of it, and we got 2 new music discs. Of course, that's the Lava Chicken one and the new tiers. We also got the dentist painting, which of course is a reference to the Minecraft movie. We also got the new leading mechanics, which is really useful, and just a ton of new leading changes. We also got, only on Bedrock for now, the vibrant visuals, which in my opinion I don't like. I think they're too vibrant. I think it is cool that they did finally add their own shader to Minecraft. Overall, I think this update was a really good one. I think it added so much new things like the happy gas, which can be really useful to transport mobs now, and a lot of other things like the big leading mechanics. And even though a lot of people didn't like that they added the Lava Chicken music disc, I think it was a cool nod to the actual move. So I'll put this update in A tier because I think it definitely was better than the previous update. And I don't think it's S tier because the happy gas, for example, could have been a bit faster, but I think it was a really useful update. Moving on to 1.21.9, probably my favorite of the year. This update was of course the Copper Age, adding all the copper things like copper chains, bars, torches, and lanterns, and of course the new oxidized variants of the lightning rod. We also got the Copper Golem, which of course can sort items through copper chests, which is also a new item that was added, and it's really cool that they finally added a mob vote mob back to the game. Of course, we also got the copper statues after a copper golem oxidizes too much, which they also provide a redstone ability, which the different poses can give a different signal. We also got the really big item, shelves. This item you can store things inside, and when it's powered with redstone, you can put a whole inventory into it. As you can see, you can put your whole hotbar slot into it. While I don't use it for the actual purpose, I use it for, of course, building, which a lot of other people do. We also got new dye textures, and of course the new copper tools and armor, which looks really cool. We also got the copper nugget, which doesn't really have too much of a purpose. And finally, copper horse armor, which people have been waiting for also. We also got the mannequins, which is not in actual survival mode, but it can be used for some pretty interesting things in creative mode. Overall, I think this update was really good, and it was probably my favorite, like I said. And even though I think that there could have been some smaller changes, when the copper armor slowly loses durability, maybe it could actually oxidize, which would be a really cool feature. But I'm really glad that they finally did add the copper golem, and even though they changed the mechanic, I think it's cool. So I'll put this update in S tier because I think even though maybe there could be some very small things that they could change, I think everything that was added was really useful, even things like the shelf for building and for its functionality. 1.21.11, the Mounds of Mayhem update, which basically just came out this month. Of course, this update brought the zombie Nautilus and the normal Nautilus, which both act the same way, except the zombie Nautilus can burn when it's out of water, because of course it's a zombie. So just to go over it quickly, we also were able to get the coral zombie Nautilus, which only spawns in warm oceans, which is a really cool small detail. So with the actual Nautilus, of course, you can tame it with pufferfish and you can boost it out of the water. We also got a special texture for the baby Nautilus, and we got the Nautilus armor. Just like horse armor, you can place it on it. We also got the new weapon, the spear, which is really OP, and it's just crafted like a diagonal shovel. Of course, there's two attacks, the jab attack and the attack where you can hold it. This item also has a very far reach, and the new enchantment lunge, which takes your hunger. We also got the parched and the camel husk. And finally, in survival mode, the zombie horse, which of course can be fed mushrooms, and once you tame it, you can put a saddle on it and of course ride it. Also, a new feature with horses is that you can finally ride water with them. They'll just bob in the water instead of fully sinking and pushing you off. You can finally cross rivers. Also, the long-awaited netherite armor has also come out this update. It's just by getting diamond horse armor and putting it in a smithing table, and it looks really cool. Overall, I think this update was also really good. I think there were so many new features that was added, and I'm really glad that they are using different textures for the baby mobs with the happy ghast, or the ghastling, and the baby Nautilus. I think there was a lot of cool things that were added in this update, especially the spear, which has some really cool potential. Even though I don't think I'll be using the Nautilus too much, I think it was a really cool feature, and I think the camel husk, the parched, and finally the zombie horse in survival mode just adds a little bit more enemies to the world that can really do big damage. And even though the parched is another skeleton, I think it's really cool that they do add different mob variants. Like we had the husk, we finally have a skeleton version. And since we already have the stray, I was honestly expecting that maybe we'd get some sort of ice zombie, which would have been cool. I think I'm going to put it in A tier, but I'm going to put it above the Chase the Skies update because there was just a lot more that was in this update. Even though I'm not going to put it in S tier, I think there may have been a little bit, I feel like a lot of the features you won't really look at too much unless it's the spear and stuff, but the Nautilus, I feel like a lot of people just won't use too much, but I think it was still really cool. So that's every single update that came out this year, and it was of course the first year that we had drops. And of course this year we had a lot of other things happen, like of course the Minecraft movie coming out, and so many new capes that came out throughout the year. So what do you think about the drop system? Do you like this system? And let us know your opinions on the updates that came out this year. Make sure to subscribe.